Hello there, Applied English. Happy day 13. Whether you're tuning in on Tuesday or Wednesday this week, doesn't matter. This whole lesson is about preparing for your unit test at the end of this week. Perhaps you've noticed by now that today's lesson folder is rather slim. It's really just wrapping up the man and then playing our review game at the bottom of the lesson to prepare for your test. If you find yourself with lots of time after this lesson, I highly recommend that you spend that time studying to make sure that you're ready for your test, whether you'll be taking that on Thursday or Friday. Obviously, A group is in person, just in class with me getting this review today. If you are B group, you're taking this review online, but then you'll be taking your test with me in the classroom on Thursday or Friday. So it's a bit of a trade-off this week. We're just going to do this as one video. So right now we're about to start reading and discussing the rest of The Man by Ray Bradbury. We really just have the second half of the story to go. And then from there, I'll give you a little overview of the review game, but if you're tuning in virtually, I trust that you'll just work through that on your own. It's a good way to quiz yourself to prepare for our unit test. Again, I'll give you an overview towards the end of this video. Our unit test is the only thing that you will need to do within our next lesson. If you are in person, it should cover the first half of class. We'll use the second half of class to wrap up missing work, extra credit. We'll get a little bit of an introduction to our next unit, but it won't be too serious there. If you are doing this virtually, the only thing you're required to do is your unit test. Although I recommend that you would use the end of this week to wrap up missing work, any extra credit that you want in, before I have to send grade reports by the end of next Wednesday. So just keep that in mind. We're just going to do one video here to prep you for that, but that is coming up in our next lesson here. Let's do it. Let's finish reading and discussing The Man by Ray Bradbury. Oh, and I forgot to pray. Let me pray before we dive into The Man. In our reading of The Man, we're going to get a little mini devotional as well, but I do want to pray us in real quick. Lord Jesus, we just ask that you open up our minds and our hearts, our eyes and our ears to the messages that you have us today, especially in this story, The Man, as we get to learn some truths about not just the world that you've created, but about who you are as well. We do want to pray that you're working on our minds and our hearts every day, whether we are coming into school at Milwaukee Lutheran High School or whether we are just tuning in virtually to learn what our teachers have put out for us and to learn just about the messages that you have for us in chapel and family groups and advisory as well. We love you, Jesus. We thank you for who you are. We pray this all in your name. Amen. The Man, Part 2. So this will be me finishing The Man by Ray Bradbury. Got like 5 or 6 pages to go, so I'll read through it. Please remember to keep a special focus on point of view and symbolism. I'll actually pull up real quick here. There we go. Sorry about that. It took me a little bit to get there. Don't forget these discussion questions right here. I'll be looking at these again after we finish reading the text, but a few things that I want you to look for as we read. For one, which point of view does Bradbury use for this story? In some of my classes, we were able to get to the fact that this is definitely a third-person point of view. Specifically, it's third-person limited, so we don't get to see what every character is thinking or feeling. At the end, I'll discuss why he makes this choice, but see if you can figure that out as I'm reading here. Another thing, who or what do the characters symbolize? Some of you probably have an idea of who the man is based on the context clues given around his character. But along with that, after you figure out who the man represents, you can probably figure out what Captain Hart stands for, what he symbolizes, what Martin symbolizes, and what the mayor symbolizes as well. Again, I'll discuss that at the end of this video, or at the end of the reading, but you should look for it yourself too. This is another just sort of loose question for you as well, but are there other symbols in this story? Are there other important objects, or are there colors that you're finding that Ray Bradbury weaves throughout the text, or any numbers throughout the text, and what sort of significance do they have? And then lastly, what is the theme of this story? What is the message that we're supposed to be getting out of this story? Let's get clicking view opens it up in a new tab. Give me a moment here. I'll have to cut as I find just exactly where I left off in this story. And I found the exact spot that we left off on at the end of The Man Part 1 right here. By the way, if you haven't watched through The Man Part 1 video, I highly recommend that you pause this one here and watch through that one just to get a feel for the first half of this story as we start the second half. Where we left off, we saw that 2 more rocket ships have swung down out of the sky and nearly crash landed in the same meadow where Captain Hart's ship has landed. Captain Hart knows that these are Captain Ashley and Captain Burton's ships. But as it happens right here, the airlock pops open, a man falls out into their arms. Captain Hart realizes that something's wrong. Let's continue. The man lay on the ground. They bent over him and he was burned, badly burned. His body was covered with wounds and scars and tissue that was inflamed and smoking. He looked up out of puffed eyes and his thick tongue moved in his split lips. What happened? Demanded the captain, kneeling down, shaking the man's arm. Sir, sir, whispered the dying man. 48 hours ago, back in Space Sector 79 DFS, off Planet 1 in this system, our ship and Ashley's ship ran into a cosmic storm, sir. Liquid ran gray from the man's nostrils. Blood trickled from his mouth. Wiped out. All crew. Burton dead. Ashley died an hour ago. Only 3 survivals. Listen to me, shouted Hart, bending over the bleeding man. You didn't come to this planet before this very hour? Silence. Answer me, cried Hart. The dying man said, No. Storm. Burton dead 2 days ago. This first landing on any world in 6 months. Are you sure? Shouted Hart, shaking violently, gripping the man in his hands. Are you sure? Sure, mouthed the dying man. Burton died 2 days ago. You're positive? Yes, whispered the man. His head fell forward. The man was dead. The captain knelt beside the silent body. The captain's face twitched, the muscles jerking involuntarily. The other members of the crew stood back of him looking down. Martin waited. The captain asked to be helped to his feet, finally, and this was done. They stood looking at the city. That means, said Martin. We're the only ones who've been here, whispered Captain Hart. And that man... What about that man, Captain? Asked Martin. The captain's face twitched, notice that word again, twitched, vocab connection, senselessly. He looked very old indeed, and gray. His eyes were glazed. He moved forward in the dry grass. Come along, Martin, come along, hold me up, for my sake, hold me. I'm afraid I'll fall, and hurry, we can't waste time. They moved, stumbling, toward the city, in the long, dry grass, in the blowing wind. Several hours later, they were sitting in the mayor's auditorium. 1,000 people had come and talked and gone. The captain had remained seated, his face haggard, listening. There was so much light in the faces of those who came and testified and talked, he could not bear to see them. All the while his hands traveled on his knees, together on his belt, jerking and quivering. When it was over, Captain Hart turned to the mayor, and with strange eyes said, But you must know where he went. He didn't say where he was going, replied the mayor. To one of the other nearby worlds? Demanded the captain. I don't know. You must know. Do you see him? Asked the mayor, indicating the crowd. The captain looked. No. Then he is probably gone, said the mayor. Probably, cried the captain weakly. I've made a horrible mistake, and I want to see him now. Why, it just came to me. This is a most unusual thing in history. To be in on something like this. Why, the chances are 1 in billions we'd arrived at one certain planet among millions of planets the day after he came. You must know where he's gone. Each find him in his own way, replies the mayor gently. You're hiding him. The captain's face grew slowly ugly. Some of the old hardness returned in stages. He began to stand up. No, said the mayor. You know where he is, then? The captain's fingers twitched at the leather holster on his right side. I couldn't tell you where he is exactly, said the mayor. I advise you to start talking, and the captain took out a small steel gun. There's no way, said the mayor, to tell you anything. Liar! An expression of pity came into the mayor's face as he looked at Hart. You're very tired, he said. You've traveled a long way, and you belong to a tired people who have been without faith a long time, and you want to believe so much now that you're interfering with yourself. You'll only make it harder if you kill. You'll never find him that way. Keep that in mind as you think about who the man might be, as well as who all of these other characters represent. Where'd he go? He told you, you know. Come on, tell me. The captain waved the gun. The mayor shook his head. Tell me! Tell me! The gun cracked once, twice. The mayor fell, his arm wounded. Martin leaped forward. Captain! The gun flashed at Martin. Don't interfere. On the floor, holding his wounded arm, the mayor looked up. Put down your gun. You're hurting yourself. You've never believed. And now that you think you believe, you hurt people because of it. I don't need you, said Hart, standing over him. If I missed him by one day here, I'll go on to another world, and another, and another. I'll miss him by half a day on the next planet maybe, and a quarter of the day on the third planet, and 2 hours on the next, and an hour on the next, and half an hour on the next, and a minute on the next. But after that, one day I'll catch up with him. Do you hear that? He was shouting now, leaning wearily over the man on the floor. Notice that vocab connection, wearily. All these details about Captain Hart being a tired man. He staggered with exhaustion. Come along, Martin. He let the gun hang in his hand. No, said Martin. I'm staying here. Notice once again, Martin's that dynamic character. As this story goes on, he's becoming bolder and bolder and bolder, and here he fully stands up to his captain. You're a fool. Stay if you like, but I'm going on, with the others, as far as I can go. The mayor looked up at Martin. I'll be all right. Leave me. Others will tend my wounds. I'll be back, said Martin. I'll walk as far as the rocket. They walked with vicious speed through the city. One could see with what effort the captain struggled to show all the old iron, to keep himself going. When he reached the rocket, he slapped the side of it with a trembling hand. He holstered his gun, and he looked at Martin. Well, Martin? Martin looked at him. Well, Captain? The captain's eyes were on the sky. Sure you won't come with me, eh? No, sir. It'll be a great adventure, by God. I know I'll find him. You are set on it now, aren't you, sir? Asked Martin. The captain's face quivered. That's a good synonym for twitched. I think that's actually a later vocab word this semester. And his eyes closed. Yes. There's one thing I'd like to know, Captain. What? Sir, when you find him, if you find him, asked Martin, what will you ask of him? Why... The captain faltered, opening his eyes. His hands clenched and unclenched. He puzzled a moment and then broke into a strange smile. Why, I'll ask him for a little peace and quiet. He touched the rocket. It's been a long time, a long, long time since I relaxed. Did you ever just try, Captain? I don't understand, said Hart. Never mind. So long, Captain. Goodbye, Mr. Martin. The crew stood by the port. Out of their number, only 3 were going with Hart. 7 others were remaining behind, they said, with Martin. Captain Hart surveyed them and uttered his verdict. Fools! He, last of all, climbed into the airlock, gave a brisk salute, laughed sharply. The door slammed. The rocket lifted into the sky on a pillar of fire. Martin watched it go far away and vanish. At the meadow's edge, the mayor, supported by several men, beckoned. He's gone, said Martin, walking up. Yes, poor man, he's gone, said the mayor. And he'll go on, planet after planet, seeking and seeking. And always he will be an hour late, or a half hour late, or 10 minutes late, or a minute late. And finally he will miss out by only a few seconds. And when he has visited 300 worlds, and is 70 or 80 years old, he will miss out by only a fraction of a second, and then a smaller fraction of a second, and he will go on, thinking to find that the very thing which he left behind here, on this planet, in this city. Martin looked steadily at the mayor. The mayor put out his hand. Was there ever any doubt of it? He beckoned to the others and turned. Come along now, we mustn't keep him waiting. They walked into the city. So, lengthy story, I know. Maybe a bit of a confusing story, but I hope that by clarifying symbolism, everything makes a lot more sense. Let's go back to our discussion questions here. So first of all, which point of view? We discussed this. It's definitely third person limited. As for why Ray Bradbury chooses to use third person limited instead of third person omniscient, is that he has to be able to keep the identity of the man a secret. By diving deep into characters' thoughts and into their emotions, it gives away too quickly who the man is. We'll discuss that in just a moment. Something to note, maybe you noticed a couple of times where Captain Hart is at a loss for words. He would say things like, "That man, it couldn't be," and then he cuts off his thoughts right there. That's because he's about to reveal who he thinks the man is. Ray Bradbury doesn't want to spoil that for us as readers because it keeps the suspense going. As for who or what the characters symbolize, what I encourage you to do is maybe pause the video right here and take a dive through the story if you're not sure who the man might be before you take a guess. I'll reveal that in just a moment here. So I hope you've taken a look through the story, and I hope the details make you think that the man could perhaps be Jesus Christ. As we look through the story, I'm going to go there real quick, back to the story. We get all these details about who the man is. I'm going to go back to, should be on page 2 or 3. Well, here's the first reference to him, right? A remarkable man appeared. Even that suggests that there's maybe a supernatural origin to this man. He is good, intelligent, compassionate, and infinitely wise. Sounds like God to me. As we continue, later on, he healed the sick and comforted the poor. Sounds like Jesus to me. Fought hypocrisy and dirty politics, sat among the people and talked with them. Sounds like Jesus to me. Here's where Hart maybe has the idea that the man could be Jesus Christ. We go to the mayor's words, right? The mayor says he's a very gentle and kind man, great in knowing intelligence. The mayor says that his son was afflicted with a withered arm that the man healed. This sounds a whole lot like a specific healing that Jesus had in the Gospels, that Jesus gave out in the Gospels. As we continue, notice this description of the man's eyes: the color of the sun, the color of the sea, the color of a flower, the color of the mountains, the color of the night. Just this description of beauty and creation ties him to God as well. Check this paragraph too. People on Earth have talked about this man for 20 centuries. That's 2,000 years. So 2,000 years ago would have been 20 A.D., right before Christ's ministry. After we walk through the old world, that would be the Middle East. We've all wanted to see and hear him, never had the chance. Now today we just missed him. We haven't discussed this moment yet, where Burton's ship and Ashley's ship both crash, and Hart realizes that both of them are dead. Here's where Hart realizes that the man must be Jesus, and he was wrong in the first place to turn away. That just kind of clarifies what's going on in that scene. And one more key detail about him being Jesus, as we continue on here, is how the mayor will not let Captain Hart in on it more, right? As we continue here, this paragraph by the mayor: "You're very tired. You traveled a long way. You've been without faith a long time, and now you want to believe that you're interfering with yourself. You'll only make it harder if you kill. You'll never find him that way." Here the mayor is saying something pretty deep. He's saying, look, Hart, you will never find Jesus. You will never come to faith if you're taking that path of violence. It's a really deep way to think about that. And maybe there's a couple of different ways we can theorize why Hart doesn't see the man in this scene. Is it because he doesn't have faith? Is it because he's trying to do this through violence? As the mayor says, you'll never find him that way. The text doesn't really go either way with that one. But it's interesting that the mayor can see exactly what's going on in Hart's spirit in this scene. Hart does shoot the mayor in order to try to get closer to the man. Obviously, it doesn't work, and then Hart turns away. But notice all those details that tie the man to being Jesus Christ himself. Now, that's where we get to look at the other characters too. So who does Captain Hart, who does Martin, who does the mayor symbolize? As far as all three of them, they represent different approaches to faith. Now, obviously, the mayor and all of his townspeople are what full trust and faith in God look like. The mayor allows himself to get shot in order to defend his faith, right? So he is one who is strongly in the faith. He spent time with the man, Jesus Christ, that is. The people of his city have spent time with him, and they represent faith, perfect faith, a long-standing faith, full trust. Captain Hart's on the opposite end of that spectrum, right? He does not have faith, as the mayor brought out. He is a symbol of unbelief, or trying to come close to Christ through all the wrong methods, right? Through violence, through his own exploration, through his own movements, instead of just trusting. That does remind me of a quote that Martin has towards the end of the text. Let me pull that up here. Towards the end, Captain Hart says, Or Martin says, "Sir, when you find him, if you find Jesus, what will you ask of him? What are you going to ask once you find Jesus?" The captain says, "I'll ask him for a little peace and quiet." He touched the rocket. "It's been a long time since I relaxed." Martin says, "Did you ever just try, Captain?" And Hart says, "I don't understand." What Martin's realizing right here is that Hart can stop looking for the man right here. He can stay on this planet. There is peace and quiet in this place where the man has been, and Hart's turning away because he does not get it, because he does not have faith. And he says, "Look, I don't even understand what you're talking about, Martin." Hart is not looking for real faith after all. He's just looking for Jesus himself, for his own accomplishments. When Martin says, "Did you ever just try?" he's saying, look, Captain, you can find him right now if you just tried. And Hart says, "I don't get it." Hart will never come to faith. He is a symbol of unbelief. What that does symbolically for Martin is it places him in the middle. We talked about Martin being a dynamic character in this story. And what's most dynamic about him is that he comes from being very similar to Captain Hart. I mean, he's much gentler than Captain Hart at the beginning of the story, but he's just as much an unbeliever at the beginning of the story. But over the course of the story, he comes to faith. He believes these people, even though he's never seen the man. He believes the experience that these people have had. And it's through that experience that he comes to faith. So Martin is a symbol of new faith in Jesus Christ. The man is Christ. The mayor is faith in Christ. Captain Hart is unbelief. And Martin is coming to faith, or the process of coming to faith. Notice how symbolism works in those characters. As for other symbols in the story, there's a lot of things that are recurring elements. I hope you notice that fire is a common element in this story. It's actually a common element in all of Ray Bradbury's writing. One thing I would suggest with fire is that it's a symbol of destruction. Notice that there is violence and destruction and pain and hatred in this story. Notice also that fire is a symbol of passion as well, as a symbol of love. Notice the passion, notice the strength that, say, the mayor has in defending his faith, even as Captain Hart pulls a gun on him. So fire is one of those symbols that has multiple meanings in this story. One interesting one that I kind of discovered for the first time reading with you guys this year is that the rocket itself could be a symbol too. I would suggest that the rocket is a symbol of searching. At the beginning of the story, Captain Hart and Martin discuss how they've been flying millions of miles through space looking for something. And it's those rocket ships that are a symbol of the search. What they're searching for, they don't even know. We know through the course of this story that what they're really looking for is faith. But the rocket is a symbol of humanity's search for fulfillment outside of faith. What becomes interesting with that is when the other two ships come crashing down as well. Even that is a symbol that by looking for faith, by looking for fulfillment on our own, through our own invention, through our own intelligence, through our own actions, we crash and burn. And the true answer to finding that is to find peace in Jesus Christ himself. I would need to read through this story again to look for numbers and colors, but I hope you spotted that there are at least a few objects that recur in this story and have meanings too. Let's tie this all together into a theme for this story. Now, obviously, the story is about Jesus Christ and it's about faith. I would suggest that what we see in the character symbolism is what this story says about faith. It's this idea that we cannot come to faith through our own actions, right? That's something that we learn throughout the Gospels, throughout the Bible too. That faith is not something that we can bring on to ourselves. We certainly can't pull a Captain Hart and try to demand it, try to force ourselves into faith by using violence, by moving and moving and moving and chasing and chasing and chasing. It just doesn't work. What does work is submitting ourselves to that experience. It's believing. Notice throughout the story that Captain Hart refuses to believe and refuses to believe no matter how many chances he gets. And by the time he does give himself a chance, it's too late. One of the ideas there is that we have to just trust what Jesus Christ is doing in our lives, and trusting that he will pull us in closer, that he will pull us in deeper into belief. It's this idea that we should believe in Jesus Christ, but also that we have to go through the process of coming to faith as well. And that process is not a violent one. That process is one of trust. It's one of hope. It's one of hearing. And it's one of responding, like Martin does. We very much learn the theme of this story through those two protagonists. Notice the different approach that Captain Hart and Martin have Captain Hart's static. He doesn't change over the course of this story. Martin has a dynamic change. He's changed by the experience that these people have had, and he searches after that faith the right way and finds it at the end of the story. He gets to enter into the city and see the man face to face. I hope you enjoyed that story, just with its symbolism and its meaning. It's not one that I will, or that you'll see any questions over on your test. But if you can understand this story, you'll have no problem with the simpler story that you'll see on our test in our next lesson. Speaking of which, let's do a little bit of review. I just want to pull us to our review game here. So you'll notice Short Stories Test Review Jeopardy is here for you. I'm not going to play through it here. One thing I want to note, if you click on the blue text right here, it'll actually take you to the website, or you can hit play now. You'll probably select one team if you are just playing alone. I don't think the full screen button works, but that's okay. I do not want buzzer mode. And I'm just going to select pineapple, whatever. Start game. So you'll notice there are 6 categories on this review game. They'll be reflected in different ways on your test in your next lesson. For vocabulary, on your test, you'll get fill-in-the-blank sentences like last time. On this game, I'll give you definitions. You have to match those definitions with the vocab word they're defining. Notice grammar and more grammar. I just needed a space to do 10 questions instead of 5. So in each of these, I will give you a sentence that contains an error or 2. These errors can be spelling errors, they can be end mark errors, they can be capitalization errors. You will see 10 other ones on your test, and they'll be ACT style. So on this one, you just correct the errors. On your test, it'll be multiple choice. So you'll see an underline in the sentence, and then you'll have options for correcting it, including no change if the sentence is correct the way it is. For parts of plot, I give you definitions for each of the 5 parts of plot. You simply need to match that definition with its part of plot, obviously. On your test itself, those are also multiple choice questions, and I didn't do all 5 parts of plot. You will see 3 of them on your test. For other story elements, you'll see other questions regarding character, setting, point of view, and theme. So be sure that you are working through those as well. Again, on your test itself, any of these questions, including reading comprehension, will be for the story I give you on the test, which is called The Sniper. For reading comprehension, these ones are 5 questions that are actually comprehension questions from the short stories we've already read. On your test, I believe you have 6 reading comprehension questions that just come from The Sniper. So you'll be able to check your text as you're taking your test. These questions are just there in order for you to show that you understand what you read in The Sniper. Have fun as you test yourself through this review game right here. You can come back to this as much as you like as you study for your test. Again, your test is going to cover just our recent 10 vocabulary words. You'll see 10 ACT-style grammar questions, spelling, capitalization, and end marks only. And then you'll have plot questions, story element questions, and reading comprehension questions for The Sniper. Working through these ones will help you become familiar with all that terminology. Best of luck to you. I'll catch you in your next lesson for your test.